going to do now is move into the third part of our broadcast. And in part 3 of the New Moon in Cancer intention setting broadcast, what we're going to be doing is talking a bit about Cancer and Cancer archetypes, Cancer themes, and then we'll move into some prompts for how we can use this particular new moon, how we can tap into the energy and set intentions around what it is we'd like to manifest with a new moon in Cancer, depending on what house it falls in for you according to your sidereal natal chart. Now, Cancer is cardinal water. Cardinal signs have a very active principle to them. So this is water that's in motion, in constant motion, it's flowing. It's not like, we talk about Scorpio and I liken it to like a still deep pool or a well, because it's fixed water. So it's water, but it's water that's very motionless. It's not moving, it's not flowing. Cancer water is water that's flowing. And if you tried to stop it, if you tried to dam it up, you'd probably have to work a lot harder than if you were working with one of the other water houses like Scorpio or Pisces, right? So Cancer is the constellation of the crab. It's symbolized in modern astrology as a crab. Although you may find in older interpretations of astrology, you might find Cancer being represented by the lobster or some other crustacean. And that's fine. They all tend to speak to the same thing. And we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Cancer archetypes are really the archetypes of the mother, right? Cancer rules the 4th house, and the 4th house is typically the house of the mother. Some folks may find it's in their own personal chart the house of the father, and that's fine. But we tend to look at the 4th house as the house of the mother or the parents in general, that nurturing and caretaking aspect. Cancer has to do with the moon. It's ruled by the moon. It's very, very intimately tied to lunar energy, that fluctuating and vacillating lunar energy. It's the nurturer, the caregiver, the healer even, right? And Cancer can also be related to the invisible man. We call it the invisible man archetype. And I want to kind of go into that in a little bit more depth for folks who might be new to that idea of the invisible man. What is that? We kind of don't have much concept of it. Well, a couple ways that the invisible man can be kind of conceptualized is as like the vagabond, the transient. So this is really a man who has no home, although we give Cancer credit for being able to make its home wherever Cancer finds itself, right? That's one of the qualities that makes Cancer so special. Can also be the emotional man, right? Because we tend to, especially in modern society, especially in the West, we tend to have this notion that men should not be emotional. They should not be prone to emotional displays, that should be private, that it should be kept to themselves, which isn't necessarily healthy. But that emotional man is invisible to the Western psyche, if that makes sense, right? And another way that you might conceptualize the invisible man is as the stay-at-home dad, right? So these are ideas of the masculine where it is divorced from our cultural concept of manhood, I guess you could say, even though that's fallacious in a lot of ways, right? But that concept of the stay-at-home dad, that's a masculine archetype that doesn't get a lot of recognition or visibility in our modern Western society. And so when we're talking specifically about the Cancer archetype of being the invisible man, that's some of the ways that it can show up. But let's talk about this notion of Cancer as the crustacean. Crustacean, this is a creature that carries its home with it, right? It takes its home with it wherever it goes. And that's one way that we do give credit to Cancer folk for being able to make themselves at home anywhere. Wherever they find themselves, they can make it comfortable. They can make it feel like home, even if it's not necessarily home in the sense of where we came from, right? And in terms of that crustacean, this has a corollary with Scorpio being a fellow water sign. this is a creature with a hard, protective outer shell and a soft, vulnerable interior, right? And that really speaks to the nature of Cancer. It's soft-hearted with a very tough exterior. Cancer has pincers, right? It's defensive. And in that way, Cancer can be kind of a clannish type of energy, where there's very much a line between us and them, us and them, us and them, what's familiar, right? Family, same root, and what is unfamiliar or foreign, okay? Not us. So with those concepts in mind, what I want to do now is kind of move into some of the prompts that we can use. So some of these are questions and some of these are actual prompts that you can use to kind of feel out what might be a good direction to take this particular new moon with your intention setting. So tonight what we're really doing is we're getting a feel for what it is we want to initiate with this new moon. What intention do we want to set? And then ideally you're going to come away with kind of an idea of your next course of action. And I would encourage you to wait a couple of days. Typically with any new moon intention setting, we advise you to wait until the first light of the new moon, right? That first sliver of the new moon starts showing. And that usually happens about a day or two after the actual new moon. That falls completely in line with my advice to you to give a few days of space around the 31st, in part because of Mercury's station, right? Because that can be unpredictable, and you don't want to have an unpredictable Mercury caught up in whatever it is you initiate, because it will flavor the entire thing. But also for those of you who might be still feeling the effects of the July 2nd eclipse, you might even want to give a few days and let August 2nd come and transpire and see if there's any eclipse news for you related to August 2nd before you make your initiation. But ideally tonight you're going to come away with a plan and know for sure what is the first step that you want to take towards what it is you want to initiate with tonight's new moon. And part of what I'll encourage you to do with your intention setting tonight is to really get clear about what outcome you want to experience. Visualize it even, draw it out. Those things happen to have a very, very powerful effect. I'm looking at, so I always work from my moon gazing journal. I bought this years and years and years ago, and it sat empty and unused on my shelf, and then finally it showed me what its purpose was. But I put some tabs in here, and I'm trying to figure out what these tabs are. Oh, I think they are days that is actually a full moon. Maybe not. Tonight's quote, though, is a full moon, but we don't use this on the full moon because we burn our paper, and I don't want to burn the pages out of this. So I will share with you the full moon lore on tonight's new moon. How about that? I suppose it's fine because it's the moon rules this lunation, right? Even though it's a new moon, it's ruled by the moon in Cancer, in her home sign. That's what we would want. So moving into the prompts, I want you to consider who or what are you overprotective of and why? This might be something related to yourself. It might be something very, very personal. I want you to consider, where do you need some mothering? And in what way can you begin to mother yourself? Where are you hiding? How can you develop the confidence to step out of your shell, to come out of your shell, to take off the mask, right? What is it that you need? And how can you actively take steps to meet that need? Because meeting our needs that's a nurturing behavior, having our needs met, right? And sometimes that's something that you can do for yourself, or sometimes that's something you need to do for yourself. So I want you to consider, what is it that you need, and how can you actively take steps to meet that need? As an alternative, you could look at, where are you not establishing healthy boundaries? In what ways do you continually allow yourself to be hurt by other people? In what ways do you let other people take advantage of your caring and your caregiving and your nurturing? And what can you do to begin to establish those healthy boundaries? What do you need to do for your own self-care? Rather than giving in and always putting other people's needs first. Maybe you're doing too much mothering of other people. Consider what makes you feel nurtured and cared for. And are you doing enough of that? Okay. How can you do more of that? Where are you hiding? This is one of my favorite ones. Where are you hiding? What are you retreating from? Where is it that you're afraid of being seen, and why? Why are you afraid of showing up, of being seen? Why are you trying to hide in your shell? Where are you avoiding opening up and venturing out into the world? This really gets more to the clannish and defensive homebody nature, right? Like, are you letting the world intimidate you? What would it take for you to feel safe to overcome that urge to withdraw? And what first step can you take towards overcoming that urge to withdraw? What is it? This one's fun. What is it you're approaching sideways and refusing to face head on? What is it? There might be something in your life in the area that Cancer rules in your natal chart. There might be something that you struggle to face head on, to be direct about or be direct with. And if that's the case, how can you begin dealing with it directly? And what's the first step in doing that? What is it you're afraid of allowing into your experience? What first step can you take to open yourself up to what is new and what is different, what is strange, or what is unfamiliar? So you can set an intention to begin establishing healthy boundaries, and set an intention for a plan, and plan what you need to do to kind of stick to it. Now, if you go the route of setting intentions around boundaries, set a firm intention to stick to your guns, okay, instead of being a softie, right? That's kind of a Cancer thing, being a softie. Now, be aware that that will take practice to do consistently and successfully, and it's a continual lifelong practice. In the same way that we say meditation practice or yoga practice, it's a practice because you do it every day. Just like piano practice or violin practice. You get better because you do it every day. So keep in mind, this is a practice. You're not going to be perfect right out the gate. It's okay if you're not perfect. Just do it consistently. Be willing to forgive yourself and be willing to practice some self-compassion if you kind of drop the ball as you begin to establish new boundaries for yourself, if that's the direction you decide to go with this new moon. I just want to call that out. You will goof because you're still getting the hang of a new behavior, and that's okay. You don't need to be hard on yourself if you do goof as you're beginning to establish healthy boundaries, okay? You could set an intention to allow for your own self-care. That could be a very important thing to do, to nurture yourself or to mother yourself in whatever way that you need. And you could set an intention to explore any emotions that might come up at this new moon and get to the root or the heart of those emotions. And I say that because any kind of lunation in Cancer tends to be a little bit emotional, because Cancer is a water sign, and that's where our emotions are dealt with, is in the water houses, the water signs. So keep that in mind. And then be sure to remember, as you work with that, if that's the direction you decide to go, that there is likely to be some kind of emotional volatility associated with this new moon, just because we have Mercury stationing, we have Pluto opposite Mercury as he's stationing, and we have the moon squaring to Uranus as this new moon takes place. And so all of those things are going to bring in a degree of volatility in a water sign right at the new moon. So just keep that in mind. You could also set an intention to be okay with the unfamiliar, with the unknown, and to open yourself up to change, to what's new, to different experiences and possibilities, and just learn to kind of embrace those ideas, those concepts, and whatever events may flow into your life that are associated with newness or change or different or the unfamiliar or the unknown. Okay, so I'm going to recap these real quick for anyone who joined us late. And if you did join us late and need a refresher on what your sidereal, what the house is for you based on your sidereal rising sign, you can let me know in the comments what your sidereal rising sign is, and I'll be happy to recap the house and the themes of that house for you. For anyone who's ready to just kind of dive in and get started with the intention setting, I'll read to you really quickly what it says in the moon gazing journal for tonight's entry. So this has to do with the full moon. It says, during the full moon, people do the craziest things. The American Institute for Climatology concluded crimes with a strong psychotic motivation, such as arson, kleptomania, destructive driving, and homicidal alcoholism, all showed peaks when the moon is full. There's a little tidbit of trivia for you related to the full moon, although it's kind of interesting that homicidal alcoholism, because that's a watery intoxicant, and you could kind of associate that with Cancer, I think, in a way. So go ahead if you're ready to get started writing. If not, I'm going to recap real quick what these prompts are for anyone who's joining us late. So tonight, what you can work with are ideas around what or who are you overprotective of and why? And how can you move out of that? Where do you need mothering? In what way can you begin to really mother yourself and give yourself some nurturing and self-care? Where are you hiding in life? And how can you develop the confidence to step out of your shell? How can you develop the confidence to take off the mask? What is it that you need? And how can you actively take steps to meet that need? Alternatively, you could look at, where are you not establishing healthy boundaries? Where are you continually allowing yourself to be hurt? In what ways do you let other people take advantage of your caring? And what can you do to begin to establish healthy boundaries? What first steps can you take? What do you need for your own self-care, rather than giving in to always putting other people's needs first? What is it that makes you feel nurtured, that makes you feel cared for? And are you doing enough of that? How can you do more? Where are you hiding? What is it you're retreating from? Where is it in life that you're afraid of being seen, and why? And what can you do to help you kind of step into being seen, which is always kind of a scary concept, but it's good for you, right? Where there's a saying that comfort zones are often expanded by discomfort, right? So you got to be uncomfortable first, and then what you're comfortable with gets bigger. Okay, so think about ways you can step out of your comfort zone. That's very appropriate for a Cancer new moon. Okay, what are you avoiding opening? Where, excuse me, are you avoiding opening up and venturing out into the world? And what will it take for you to feel safe, for you to overcome the urge to withdraw? What first step can you take towards overcoming that urge? Or can you just dive in? Can you dive in and do it scared? Because sometimes that's just the best way. If you can't think of something that could help you overcome that, just dive in and do it scared. Okay? What is it you're approaching sideways and refusing to deal with head on? How can you begin dealing with it directly, and what's the first step in doing that? And what is it you're afraid of allowing into your experience? Or what first step can you take to open yourself up to what is new or different or strange or unfamiliar? Okay, so set an intention around something like that. If you have Cancer rising, feel free to set an intention around anything that you want for the coming year. It is your birthday new moon, but you can work with establishing healthy boundaries, sticking to your guns instead of being a softie. You can set an intention to allow for your own self-care or nurturing, to kind of give yourself mothering, okay, in whatever way you need best. And you can also set an intention to be okay with the unfamiliar, with the unknown, and to kind of open yourself up to change and to new and different experiences and possibilities. Everyone, just take a moment and write out your intention that you want to work with tonight. And if you would share with us in the comments when you're done, share what your intention is. And sometimes that can be quite inspiring for the rest of the class, if you want to call it that. I know I often get very inspired by seeing what other folks who are on the broadcast are working with. But everyone, just take a moment and write out your intention setting, and we'll reconvene when we're done to finish up the intention setting practice. So this is kind of funny for me. Cancer, of course, ruling the home and domestic matters by its natural position in the zodiac. I have it in the second house, so for me this is earned income, it's possessions. But I'm just embarking on this whole new experience of having a roommate in my home. I'm suddenly the only person who lives here, and I have plenty of space, and so I'm going to be renting out a room in my home beginning in the month of August. And so to me, that's kind of an interesting parallel, that this is an opportunity to generate revenue for myself, but through leveraging my home to do it. So a second house being Cancer, it's kind of interesting and poetic to me. So what I wrote, if anyone else wants to share in the comments, please do. And I see you, Tanisha. I'm gonna come back and touch on what you've got there, and I'm gonna look and see if anyone else has commented too. So I wrote, for my second house new moon, I intend to open myself to receiving in life, whether through the generosity of others, through divine providence, through opportunities, gifts, even compliments, or any other way of allowing abundance to flow into and through my life. And I intend to embrace this abundance and to share it with others. I think that's an important thing for allowing abundance to flow into our life. We have to be willing to allow it to flow out of our life with gratitude too, and to share that abundance with other people in our lives. I also wrote, I intend to generate revenue, right? This is income through the recycling, is what I put, old unused possessions and belongings into actual cash. I'm going to recycle stuff into money. That's what I'm going to do this weekend with my neighbor, and making space for new in my life. I want to make space for new and more appropriate and more useful to come into my life. I intend to explore profitable new partnerships, and I intend to implement workable strategies to scale my income and generate revenue through my home itself. I want to get specific with you here. When I wrote, I intend to implement workable strategies to scale my income, I mean specifically through my business. Cancer often is about a home-based business too, especially if you have it in the second house. For me, I own my own business. I'm an entrepreneur, and scaling and generating revenue through scaling is something that's been actively on my mind in the last several months. And so I think a new moon in my house of income would be the perfect time to really sit down and implement some concrete strategies for scaling income. And for anyone else who has a second house new moon, it can be an excellent opportunity to do that. So even if you work for someone else, it might be the right time to ask for a raise. It might be the right time to pick up a second job or to start a side hustle. The reason I call that out, when you have it in the second house and it's income generating, if you act at the new moon, you position yourself by the time the full moon in your second house comes, about 6 months after the new moon, you position yourself to really be reaping the benefits and the rewards of having taken that action. So this is about having long-term planning perspective, can be really, really important. And when it's in an income house, I really encourage you to be thinking about, there's a payoff down the road and how can you take advantage of it. Tanisha says, and we have Ashley on with us tonight too. Thanks for joining us, Ashley. For some reason, it was telling me that people were on, but it didn't tell me who was on, and I don't know why. Tanisha Mariah says, I graduate this year, so I'm definitely thinking about the intention around the unknown. But I'm Cancer rising, so I'm also considering, what am I hiding and what do I need to do to come out of my shell? And that's really an interesting consideration that you bring up, Tanisha. I like that you're focusing on exploring the unknown, because where we have Cancer in our chart, we can be hesitant to do that. We might want to just stay where we feel safe and protected. But sometimes being able to open yourself up to new and different and to what is unknown or unfamiliar, it allows new variables to come into play, and that can spark off some incredible opportunities that you might not have really even conceived of otherwise. So as you're setting your intention, here's what I would say to this, Tanisha, because you're considering where am I hiding and what do I need to do to come out of my shell. If in the moment, as you're setting your intention, if nothing's coming to you, and you can do this with any new moon and with any intention that you set in any house, but in the moment, as you're wanting to set the intention, if nothing's really coming to mind, then simply set the intention to be open to receiving. Set the intention to be open. I'm getting goosebumps all of a sudden just saying this. Set the intention to be open to inspiration, for a flash of insight, for a message, for some way for the universe to wave a flag at you and say, here, this is what you need, go this direction. So if you can't set the intention about a specific action that you're confident that you need to take or something that you need to do, just set an intention to be open to guidance. And sometimes that's all you need to do to allow the guidance to come. And when it comes, you'll know it. I guarantee you, you will not, when you open yourself to being guided, when the guidance comes, you will always know that that's exactly what it is when it arrives. And so thank you for that. I think that's a wonderful thing for you to be exploring, especially with Cancer rising, and I commend you. It takes bravery. It takes a lot of bravery to be willing to do that, to step into the unknown and to work on coming out of your shell. And I wish you the best of luck as you work to do that. I don't really have much more for all of you tonight. The August overview and short reports will be posted on the website soon. Hopefully today or tomorrow, because we have August 1st coming up very shortly. Excuse me. I have it written, I just haven't published it to the website. So it's on its way. I will share it to the Mystick Physick Astrology Facebook page as soon as the August overview and short reports are published. So if you want to get notified, you can like and follow the Mystick Physick Astrology Facebook page, and you might want to click on your notification preferences and set it to see first, because Facebook is messing with their algorithm and you might not see it. Or another way that you can be notified is if you sign up for the mailing list. If you opt for the Mystick Physick, the newsletter, that's where I notify you, is if you're getting the newsletter. That's where I notify you that the horoscopes have been published at the website. So those would be the two ways if you want to be notified right away. As soon as those are published, they'll be going up, like I said, within the next day or so. Hopefully I can work it into my schedule. I'm doing a bunch of like rearranging of my home to make room for this new roommate idea that I've come up with. And stay tuned for news about the 2020 Ultimate Astrological Planners. Normally I have them available for pre-sale right now. I don't quite have them ready yet because they're going through some changes, and I haven't really been talking about this a lot because I didn't want to tell y'all stuff and not be able to tell you when or what to expect. But there's a slight redesign coming to the Ultimate Astrological Planner. It's going to allow you to customize and personalize your planner in a lot bigger ways than you've ever been able to do it in the past. So I'm excited to share more details with you on that, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. And then if you haven't, and I'll put a link in the description for this video, because when I upload it to YouTube, I will probably only be able to cross-link 3 videos together, and this will already be a 3-part video. But if you haven't, catch the latest Sidereal Insights Astro Update on the Mystick Physick Astrology Facebook page, or on the YouTube channel, or even on the website. It's posted right now on the website. You can watch it any of those 3 places, because I go more in depth into what you can expect in the early part of August. And you may want to know those things as you are planning for setting intentions for the new moon. Sorry, Buckaroo Bonsai has joined me on my desk. He's playing with a twist tie and he might knock some things down here. So I'm going to sign off and let y'all go, because I have this crazy cat who's just aiming to misbehave. Thank you all for joining me. Have a happy and blessed new moon. It's been such a pleasure to have you on, and I'm excited to see what everyone does with their new moon. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you.